when you start, you go, okay, we're going to build this business, and we're going to build these business for these reasons, so that we can live this life. So I can, here's the life that I see, here's the me that I see, I'm going to work toward that. And when those things that you root yourself in become disrupted or changed entirely, you kind of lose that thing. And when I don't have a why, there's no what, right? I'm not stoked to do really anything.
Welcome to Hello Grow,
the #1 growth podcast of Utah.
I'm Court Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza.
And today we have Brady Mclean with us.
What's up, guys?
Let's go.
Got that perfect distance from the mic.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this is going to be the funniest episode we've ever had.
Court tells me when we're starting, he says, you got to be almost making out with the mic like it's your sister. And I was like, I've never almost made out with my sister, but I will try my best.
Editor, please leave this in. Don't cut this out.
Yeah, if you can put a little reverb on.
Do you know who Mitch Hedberg is?
I feel like I do.
That's the biggest compliment I could give you. You sound exactly
that.
like Mitch Hedberg.
I love that.
He's a comedian.
He must be a handsome voice guy.
He's an unbelievably handsome voice.
I love it. Thank you.
So Brady, which is an incredible name, by the way.
Amen.
My last name's Brady.
I know. I love that. I saw that and I was like, oh, they like put me in the title of their thing. I was like, oh, that's his name. Never mind.
Some Irish heritage.
I thought I was in.
So Brady owns multiple companies, wildly successful, owns multiple real estate properties, and for the last 6 months has lived in his van. And I'm pumped to hear your story, bro. You have some branding companies that are very mission driven. You have Only Co. You have Go Fast, Don't Die. And you've also done some work with fighting human trafficking in Asia. We're going to talk about all of that, hear your story, and then we want to get really deep on the principle of finding your why and living integriously to whatever your why is. So if we can start off, just jump into what is Only Co. and how did you get started?
So Only Co. First of all, thank you. You made me sound really cool there. I feel like I could fit in. When I first started like checking out when you did the intro and I started checking out the podcast earlier, I was like, man, it's a trip they had me on there, but I get it.
It is a trip.
They're like, well, he's with Josh. I guess how I get in a lot of doors. I'm like, yeah, I'm with him. So Only Co. now is kind of has morphed a lot from what it was when it started, which as any business should be, I suppose, or should do. Now it's become like a market differentiation company, really focusing on what makes people different, helping people find the thing that they uniquely offer to the world. And there are all kinds of exercises and practices and procedures and all these things that they've built. And I say they because I had nothing to do with a lot of it. When we started, it was me and Josh just doing social media, like almost door to door, telling people like, hey, have you heard of Facebook? You should use it. And they're like, nah, we don't do that. We do radio and we do newspaper. We've done that for 30 years. We're not changing it up now. And we're like, okay, I get it, but really, you should try it. And then we'd get somebody to
Is this because you're not that old? So this must be because you're from Wyoming, not because you're old, because you're only 36.
I am 36. My birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I haven't got to say I was 36. I'm 18 for the second time, I realized. I was like,
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it differently the second time around. You know?
I'm going to do it differently.
I think I might go to college, but probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't. I'm too smart to now. And not smart enough. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, in Wyoming, we're like 100 years back. We just got cars, pretty recently. So we're catching up. But when we heard about Facebook and we're like, dude, we should tell people about this. It's on the internet. And people are like, I don't trust that internet. Every time I get on there, and I'm like, no, you don't have to do that anymore. So we end up selling like high-speed internet on accident. Yeah, so
it's a byproduct.
Yeah, it was great. We were really stimulating the local economy and bringing our community to the modern world, which was satanic to a lot of people. So I'm like, no, it's cool. Promise. Looking back, I'm not sure we did anybody any favors, to be honest.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know.
Is the world actually better off?
Right, exactly. It's that Chinese proverb where like, who's to say, right?
Who's to say?
Oh, you're a kid. He broke his arm. I'm so sorry. And then the next day, the Army recruiter comes. We need all the able-bodied young men to come fight a war. And like, oh, you're so lucky you broke his arms. Like, who's to say? You know, you've heard that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chinese proverbs, man. Anyway, so we started there, and it has morphed entirely. Somewhere in the middle there of that agency work, I kind of left. So I went through what one man coined a Heartbreaker tour. All kinds of things went terribly wrong in my life, and right, I suppose, in some ways. But I got divorced. My dog died. I had some business partners who were great friends of mine have a falling out. It didn't work out for them. My aunt died. I'm sure I hit my shin on something somewhere in there. Just a whole bunch of stuff. I just felt super low. I felt like my why was just kind of torn from me, because when you start, you go, okay, we're going to build this business, and we're going to build these business for these reasons, so that we can live this life. So I can, here's the life that I see. Here's the me that I see. I'm going to work toward that. And when those things that you root yourself in become disrupted or changed entirely, you kind of lose that thing. And when I don't have a why, there's no what, right? I'm not stoked to do really anything. So at the time, I had a motorcycle. And we had Go Fast Don't Die existed prior to that. I remember my former mother-in-law telling me, saying Go Fast Don't Die when we were taking off. I was like, that's so cool. That's so much better than like have fun, be safe. Who says that? And we had a designer, Dan Lee, still our designer to this day. One of my favorite people. Shout out to Dan. And he had, made a couple logos. And when I kind of went on this journey, on this, motorcycle ride to kind of ride out of the depths, we really, really launched Go Fast as an actual business, not just a brand, not just kind of our own thing. And in the same way, I didn't talk about punk rock. We didn't mention Rob Monson. This was all before. No. We had an amazing conversation before we started this podcast as well. You should all know this is a special room. We're in good energy here. Anyway, the brand kind of started there. The Go Fast started there. So, and from there, our agency went through a lot of change as well. So Josh and I, as business partners, we're both kind of acting. We give each other a lot of space. We are wildly different in a lot of ways, and somehow aligned on a lot of things that really matter, which is a special partnership and very cool in a friendship and cool in a partnership. But he kind of explored more what he was passionate about, and kind of honed in and created Only Co. He really brought Only Co to being Only Co, and not just another creative agency, not just another digital ads agency, not just another place you can get your website made, but something that was actually special and helpful and valuable in the marketplace, when everything else is just like, oh, we'll do a logo for you and you'll pay an arbitrary amount of money for that kind of thing. And we go, what do you actually need? Who actually are you? What should we build upon? What's special about you? So he started asking great questions, and Only Co has been awesome since then. Super proud of him and the team that works there. They call me when they need when they got a weird question. I still, back in the day that we called me a Wildcard. That was my official title on the website.
I see that on LinkedIn. It's still there.
Still there, right? Yeah. I'm still there. Available as a Wildcard. So they call me when they need me.
For the joking
that is
part
so
of it,
cool.
or for when they want the jokes, or when they need some extra so that they win.
It's a wild card, right? So I can wear the king suit, the queen suit. I can be a 9, I can be a 2, whatever you want. You need an ace, I'm your guy. Yeah. So and then from there, so started Go Fast as I think for Josh. I think his passion in it. And then Brett is another partner in Go Fast, and he was excited about it because he was working in Only Co, and he was learning about ads. He was learning about, social media, and he was handling some accounts, and he's like, hey, this is fun, because he really liked motorcycles, and he's like, man, I'm really attracted to this. So he started running some ads and doing some work on social. And then, so we started posting, I think where it really started taking off was we started posting. Well, one, I was on the road, and I was on the road in a place where I was really low in the beginning of it. And as I climbed out, like my energy started coming back, my curiosity started coming back. And for me, like that is, I will forever owe the motorcycle, just that whole community of people that are seeking in that way. I see them in such a different light than I think most people see them.
Can you dig into that for a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I could go on all day. I'll say this. I'll start with this. So when I left Wyoming, I signed divorce paperwork. Like I set it down. I'm bundled up in the silliest outfit you'll ever see, because it was like 30 degrees in Wyoming. And I signed paperwork, which I was very reluctant to sign for a very long time. So it was sort of like this finish of this chapter. It felt like defeat to me. It felt like I thought I'd figure this out. I saw a different outcome, and I'm sure you guys know, like, you can get attached to an outcome. You can go, no, we will, hell or high water, we'll get this thing done. And you can get attached, and sometimes you don't let go when you need to let go. You feel that energy that says, hey, it's time to go that way. Just, that's not the thing anymore. and you don't. You're like, no, I'm ego, I can do it. Finally, I handed that over and rode out of Wyoming. It was freezing. So I went to Utah, and then I went to Las Vegas. I was on my way to Mexico, and I went to Las Vegas. Had this crazy experience in Vegas as a kid from Wyoming. I'm on a motorcycle. I've got, I don't know, like not very much money, and most of the money I have is in cash in my wallet. And I was riding, and I got pulled over for speeding. And when I got pulled over, I got my wallet out. I remember this cool wallet my Uncle Jimmy made me. Shout out to Jimmy Seized Leather. He's amazing. But I set it down, and I gave the guy my ID, and he went back and ran it and came back and just gave me a warning. And I was so nervous because I was a kid from Wyoming. I hadn't gone anywhere. I'd gone to the island a whole bunch of times, but that's a flight and a ferry and, a lot of like white people stuff. Like it wasn't scary at all. It was all very handled for me. Right. And so I was just terrified. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to jail. Like here, I'm getting pulled over in Las Vegas. There's traffic everywhere. I felt like Ricky Bobby when the cars were driving by him, And I went back to my hotel room, or my hotel, which was right across the street from this bar called Hogs and Heifers, which is like a biker bar in downtown Vegas, in like old Vegas. And when I went to get my key card, and my wallet wasn't there. And I zoomed back, and I was like, I set my wallet on top of my thing. He gave me the thing back. I put the thing in my pocket. I drove off. Mm-hmm. My wallet with all it's all cash. I don't think I even had a credit card. Is sitting on the side of the road, and it was on a very busy off ramp that I got pulled over. And there was a bunch of people sitting at the bottom of it, homeless people down there, like just people asking, like panhandling and that kind of thing. I was like, it's gone. But I sped back there as fast as my Harley Davidson motorcycle would go. And I got back there, and like, no joke, 15 feet from this guy who's panhandling is my wallet sitting down on the ground. And I just had this I exhaled my soul, I was like, thank you, God. And I picked it up, and I went back. And so then when I got back, I parked, and I just was like, I had this moment of like, what am I doing, dude? Like, I just almost lost my wallet, which would have been the end of this trip. And I wouldn't even have money to get home. Like, I'm just like, I just got like all these things just happened in my life. I'm in this, I'm just in a crazy place, and I'm being an idiot, and I don't know what's going on. And I'm from a small town in a big world, and I'm absolutely faking it out here, and I'm terrified. And I sit down just to kind of exhale and breathe for a second. And there's this guy over here, and he's kind of this bigger guy, kind of your classic biker looking dude who you would think has a couple brain cells, and like, you better be careful with him kind of thing. And he's facing this way, and I'm facing this way, and he goes, who hurt you? And I was like, me? And I look at him, and I was like, are you an angel? Like, what, how do you know what? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, is that your bike? And I look at my bike, and I'm like, yeah, that's my bike. And he's like, yeah, Wyoming plates, you're ways away from home. Nobody packs that much stuff. I was like, he's like, are you with anybody else? I was like, no, I'm by myself. And he's like, yeah, people don't really pack up like that and drive out to a place like this and sit on a bench by themselves when everything's going great. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's like the deepest. Are you a therapist? You know, you look like an idiot, you know, like you look like a biker dude, you know, and most of the biker dudes, at least my perception of biker dudes up until that point was very like, you know, blah, 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 you know, like they like loud noises and whatever. And I love riding motorcycles, so take it with a grain of salt, guys. But that was my perception at the time. And then I had this conversation with this guy, and he was a lot older than me. He's probably 60, in his 60s. And he kind of tells me his story, and he's out there kind of in a similar vein of just like, yeah, we're out here like, you know, trying to find ourselves. We're out here trying to do this thing. We're out here trying to explore and see what the world has to offer. And, you know, we're seekers. And I tell him my whole story. He goes, it sounds like you've been on a Heartbreaker tour. And later I kind of dedicated my rest of my life. It made a lot of sense because I grew up playing music, and the idea of a themed tour really made sense. And I decided later, I was like, I want the rest of my life to be in Heartmaker tour, you know, or instead of like going through all this pain and all this stuff, I want to go do good things for people and encourage the best out of people and encourage to live a better story. Because at the time before I left, during the winter, before I left on that bike, I was at the lowest of the low. And when I was looking back, I was thinking, if this is the end, because it felt like the end, very much felt like the end. I was thinking, if this is the end, what did I do with my life? What story is there to tell? And I was not super proud. Even the pieces that I was most proud of had kind of ended in failure, you know? And so I just wasn't real stoked to tell my story. So I'm like, well, I'm probably on my way out here, but I'm going to go out telling a great story. I'm going to try to tell a better story on my way out. And so I signed up for a trip. Obviously I went on the motorcycle, like, so in that time, I went on this trip to Juarez where we built a house built a couple houses for some families down there through Casas por Cristo, which I had wanted to do before, but had, you know, my wife and mother-in-law had asked me not to, because Juarez for the longest time, maybe I don't think anymore, but for a long time was the most dangerous city in the world for Americans. They didn't want me to go. I honored their wishes, you know, like, and but now I was not tethered, so I was like, I signed up for that, and I thought, well, if I get killed there, that'd be a huge favor to me, you know. And then I'd get to go out doing something meaningful. And then rode motorcycles and just started meeting people very similar to that conversation, that interaction that really set the tone for really the next, until now, you know, the next 7 years of my life. That was somewhere around 7 years ago. And that was it. And Go Fast Don't Die sort of was this brand, and is this brand that I wanted to just encourage people to live their life's best story, to pursue that. Because when you get to the end, and I was so fortunate to sort of have an end in the middle, where I was like, if this is the end, what did I do? And I got to look back and go, I'm not that proud. I'm proud of pieces, you know, but I'm not that stoked. What could I do that would be a better story for myself? And so we have existed, you know, obviously it's through motorcycles, and a lot of what you see when you look at the brand, or when you look at the brand online, in my opinion, this is the brand, right? Like, we're hanging out, having a conversation. This is the brand. I try to live the brand. I try to live my best story as a modeled behavior for other people to do that, whatever that looks like for them. And I feel like I've said a ton of words just now.
No, that was great.
How are you guys?
I do have a follow-up question, though. I feel like the younger generation that's coming up struggles to connect with people, and it sounds like you have, I want to say, mastered the art of connecting with people. I don't think I've met a lot of people who I've connected so quickly with, and it just sounds like you've been shaped by those experiences, by connecting with people. What kind of advice do you give to the young people who are listening to this in terms of connecting with others and letting those things grow you as a person?
I think tell the truth. That's what I said. We talked, so I got a few notes before this podcast, like, hey, there's one thing we like to dive in, kind of what is your specialty, or what do you really focus on in business, or what's your guiding principle? And it's truth for me. Focus on the truth, because, you know, you say like they struggle with connection. with people. Well, if you struggle with connection, who could you connect really well with? Probably other people who struggle with connection. A lot of times people don't go say, hey, I struggle with this thing, because that's a really vulnerable thing to do. And vulnerability is terrifying. But on the other side of vulnerability is you getting to kind of remove that mask and actually live. You actually get to take a breath. You know, you actually get to become yourself. And if you, on the other side of that courageous move is the world, you know? And so my advice to them would be, tell the truth. Hey, I struggle to connect with people. Walk up to someone, go, hey, I really struggle to connect with people. How are you? My name's whatever my name is, you know? And they go, hey, that's a weird thing to say, but me too.
Me too.
And C.S. Lewis, if you guys are familiar with C.S. Lewis, he says, one of my favorite quotes of his is, friendship is born when one person says, oh, you too? I thought I was the only one, right? That's a friendship born. So when you are vulnerable enough to go say, I struggle with connecting, I struggle connecting with people, that is the truth is always going to be a great catalyst for connection. That'd be my advice.
We had talked about, we are going to get into the why. I do want to talk about your time in Asia. I want to double click on that truth. It's such it was the last thing I expected, right? When I send a message out and say, hey, it's stoked to have you on the podcast. We want to talk about your life, your story, and then also a business or entrepreneurial principle that you find you're passionate about or have some expertise in. And your response was, first, sorry I didn't get back to you guys. I was flooded with texts, and it was a lovely experience. And I just loved, I loved that, like, that was your day yesterday. You just embraced it and enjoyed it, and then you followed that up with, but my thing might be different from what you guys usually hear, but it's truth, and that's my truth.
Yeah.
And I'm so, like, can you expound on that a little bit?
The truth piece.
The truth piece.
Yeah.
How does that relate to entrepreneurship or business?
So how do you define success? I listened to a little bit of some of the podcast, and I tried to kind of click through them and listen to, I just wanted to be familiar. Not that I want to be like everybody else, but I do want to bring value to people who are listening to this, because that's why they're listening, to gain some value. And so I want to know who's listening, what we're talking about, so I can be valuable, because I believe that we're called to serve. I think that's kind of the first thing in truth. We are called to serve. But what success? So people talk like, oh, he's very successful. He's very successful. He's very successful. Oh, he's very successful. And we use that word constantly. And I've met some people who are, by the world's values, by the way that we generally speak of that word, insanely successful. And I've had conversations with them that break my heart, for them. And I'm like, dude, like, if you could, I've had so many people tell me that they, and I'm as sensitive as they come. I am an empathetic being. Like, that thing when God was making me, he was like, the lid came off, and it was like, oh gosh, that was a lot of empathy. I'm so sorry. But mix it up. Here you go. Do your best. So, like, I've met people who would trade places with me, or want, oh, you're living the dream. That's, you said that looking at the van, right? Oh, you're living the dream out here. And I'm like, well, I'm living a dream. We're all living the dream. We all get to live. It's such a blessing to be alive. But success. So back to success. So I had someone ask me, what's your definition of success? And I spent like 800 miles. I measure my things in miles because I travel a lot. But I spent like 800 miles just putting that on the oil. So one thing I love, and you guys will definitely pick up on this real quick. I am as 80, when he poured the attention, ability to master paying attention, he just set that one back up. I put so much empathy in there. I feel like if I give this guy the ability to pay attention, it's going to not work out. Good luck, So, I bounce around a lot, but I've gotten I've gotten a lot better at coming back to the thing. So the part of what riding a motorcycle does for me and has done for me is I get on a bike, my hands are busy, my butt's planted, my feet are, set down, like on the pegs. The landscape is ever changing. It's constantly sort of entertaining me with, there's some consequence to my action. I have to be somewhat involved. And like, if I'm ever paying attention to someone, a lot of times it's funny because Josh is actually really good at this. I feel like he's like, hey, Brady's going to come, but he might like be walking around while we're having the meeting. It's not because he's not paying attention. It's because that's how he pays attention, you know? But something about sitting on a motorcycle kind of lines up the gears, or even driving. You know, driving does it as well. I think motorcycles just maybe just one less wall. But it kind of lines up the gears in my brain to be able to think through a thought. And so post Heartbreaker tour, right? Riding a motorcycle, I rode 10,000 miles like that month that I left. I mean, I rode a ton because I had a lot on the head and heart to think through, and it helped me so much to think through it. I'm like, more people need to do this. This is therapy. I get it, you know, and I need to encourage other people to get this, because if the trap that I was in, if this is the escape, they need to know this is an escape. This is a way out. So someone asked me at one point while I was traveling, they said, what is your definition of success? And I wanted to give a good answer to that. And so I thought about the truth. Well, what is my definition of success? And when I thought through it, I landed on, we sort of have three big pillars that we put that word in. So when we say someone is successful, it's pretty much money, fame, power. And it can be a lot of one. And sometimes it's a mixture of all of them. And a lot of times one leads to the others, right? But that's what we are talking about when we're talking about success: money, fame, power. And I go, okay, so if I'm powerful, am I successful? Well, I've met powerful people who I wouldn't want their life, right? Who are not happy. They're not fulfilled. Their life is not enriched. I've met people with a lot of money, same thing. And some are and some aren't, right? But you can't say that unequivocally that thing is something that everybody wants or I want. And then fame. And fame might be the worst of all of them, because the people I've met who are the most famous, the reason that I met them was because they were escaping with the things I was an escape artist, and they were landing in the same spot. I'm like, what are you doing out here? Weren't you on that show? And they're like, yeah. Can we just not talk about that for a while and just let me be a human? I'm like, yeah, of course. I don't care. It's not that great of a show anyway, you know? And I've met people like that in all of those buckets, right? And so I think we look at money, fame, and power, and we go, oh, he's wildly successful. He's greatly successful. And for me, so I started thinking through that. I'm like, well, if it's not those things, what is it? What do I call success? What do I want to call success? And I believe that I believe that we all have a calling. I think we're all put here to do something. I don't think that life is an accident. I don't think that the gifts we're given is an accident. I think, someone was pouring the stuff in and made us beautifully and wonderfully, right? We are that thing. And so if that's the case, then what is success according to us being made purposefully? And so if we have a calling, I believe that success is us finding alignment with our calling, living in alignment with our calling. And that's why what is successful to one person is not necessarily successful to another. Now, like we in the West especially, but really in the world, we've decided that the more you have, the more successful you are, generally speaking. Obviously, not everyone thinks that. Even the people who thought that don't necessarily think that. A lot of people who have, Jim Carrey said one time, I wish everyone could get rich and famous so they would realize that is not the thing. And I do too, because once you start feeling those things, and I heard you talking on the podcast a bit, where you're like, you landed a lot of goals. You reached this place. You said, I want to be that guy. And you became him. And you went through a series of depression. I'd love to hear more about that. But like you were like, dang it, why don't I feel perfect? I did the thing I set out to do. And I think, and everyone I know goes through that. Almost the more successful they are, quote unquote, when we're talking about the three buckets successful they are, the more they're like, what the heck? I met Mike. Do you guys know who Mike Posner is?
No.
So you ever heard, if I could write you a song to make you fall in love, I would all... It's Mike Posner. A pill in Ibiza. I took a pill in... Anyway, this guy, he's been a trippy story in my life. He walked across America, and it was after his dad passed away and his friend Abichi passed away, and a lot of things happened. Well, he has a song called Drip, and I listened to that song when I started paying attention that he's walking across America. I never really was a fan of his music, but when he started walking across America and just I was just following his journey, because I felt like I was like, yeah, me too, dude. You kind of have it, and then you don't feel like you have it. And what's going on? What's life actually all about? And I ended up meeting that guy in a crazy story. I don't know if we want to tell that story on here, but he talks about like how it's supposed to be all good, right? I've got millions of dollars in the bank. I've got whatever car I want. I have all the friends in the world. Everybody knows my name. Money, fame, power. I've got all of those things. Why is it not all good? In the song Drip, he kind of loses his mind on it, right? It's kind of it's a pretty artsy song, not a real like bop, right? Anyway, I came to the conclusion that it was when you find an alignment with your calling, and you were talking actually in your guys' podcast about this Venn diagram, to sort of find what you ought to do. And I thought it was great. And I think it's in alignment with what I'm talking about. When you're in alignment with your calling, there is no amount of, I believe that there's no amount of money, fame, and power that can make you successful if you're out of alignment with what you're called to do, who you're called to be. And I also believe that there's no lack of money, fame, and power that can keep you from being successful when you're in alignment with your calling. So some people are insanely, I got goosebumps even talking about it because I know them. Some people are insanely successful and they got less than $100 to their name. You know, nobody knows their name. They're not, their power is minimal as far as we're concerned, but they are so powerful to me. You know, they're so inspiring to me, more so than even the great Kobe. And God bless Kobe. Like, I'm a huge Kobe fan. Mama mentality for life. But, you know, like that thing to me, I'm like, wow, you are called to be this person. Almost every great mother I see, I'm like, you need more airtime, you know, because I see them and I'm like, you are in alignment. Like you are doing what my mom, she just wanted to be a mom. She's the most amazing mom ever. I don't care who your mom is. Mine's better. You know, anyway, I believe that success is in alignment with your calling. So go back. Look, I've looped us back after a 30-minute segue. To go back to truth. I think that I think a lot of people, you can write a mission statement, right? You can write a value piece. You can write here's what we're here for. You can have a company policy. You can do all those things. But the truth will always come out, right? If we're here, we are here strictly to make a profit. We want to turn a profit. We want shareholders to be stoked at the end. That's what we're here to do. I would rather hear that from a company. If that's what we're doing, I'd rather hear that right away and go, okay, that's what I'm here for. Buckle up. Every day I'm going to wake up and go, how do I drive more profit? How do I make us more profitable? That's what we're all here for. We're all in alignment, and let's go. We're stoked. And if you're not in alignment with that thing, find a different team, because that's what we're doing. What I see sometimes is people are like, we exist to... So our mission statement is to contribute to a culture and community that inspire our existence, right? Which, in my opinion, should be every company's mission statement, right? To contribute to a culture and community that inspire us to exist. And if that's not your mission statement, right? Or if your mission statement is like, the truth will always come out. So when you go with this thing, you sort of make this nice, public appealing mission statement, when the reality is like, we just want profit. That's what we want. We would sacrifice anything for that. Then somebody buys into this thing, and then they're like, when they read between the lines real quick. And then there's a lack of trust. And how hard are you going to work for someone who you don't trust? How hard are you going to work for someone who like told you one thing and is clearly after the other, right? If you tell me what you want, if you say, hey, we're out here for violence, right? And I go, well, I would like to be out here for violence. Cool. Now we're in alignment. If we're out here for peace, I want to be out here for peace. Then we're in alignment. We can go. But if you tell me you're here for peace and I see violence, I'm going to be really confused. I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm going to be lost, right?
Why do you think so many people live out of alignment? So recap of that conversation. Yeah. There is a God. He created each of us and he gave each of us a calling, and that is a truth. And if we can align ourselves with that, the greater alignment we can have with what calling we've received and what actions are in accordance with that calling, that's how you would define success. To recap, is that
yep
accurate?
Spot on, mate.
Why is it so difficult for people to live in alignment?
Oh man. So when I was in college, we had this class. It was a mass media class, and shout out to Dr. Johnson, who's my favorite teacher. Well, can't say he's my favorite teacher ever. In college, he was my favorite teacher for sure. He was awesome. He was just a phenomenal teacher. Ran the entire program. When he left, he got a bigger job, and when he left, the whole program dropped out. And when he left. I quit college. But for when I was in his classes, I was locked in. I was stoked. One of the things that we did was we had to document. And I live in Wyoming, so keep this in mind. We have like 4 people in our whole state. We are the rarest Americans, right? There are less people from Wyoming than any other state. So you're in the presence of...
How many electoral votes do you guys get in Wyoming?
I don't even think we get any.
No.
We're the equality states. We were the first to grant women's suffrage or recognize. I'm not supposed to say grant. I got in trouble for that one time. You didn't grant us the right to vote. We already had it. It wasn't recognized. Respect, ladies. I love you. Anyway, I think they took away all our privileges after we did that. That was a joke, ladies. I love you. Yeah, so I don't know, but we're probably 4. Does 4 sound right?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I don't know how many Utah
I have no idea either. I will tell you that state will be lit up red every single time. Shout out to our brothers in Jackson who bring the blue. We have a diverse and colorful state, but there aren't very many of us. Anyway, so keep in mind that we have 7 people in our whole state, right? It is not a booming metropolis anywhere. I think they're like 600,000 people are in our entire state at this point. At that time, it was probably more like 450 when I was in college. And the assignment was to document every piece of media, every advertisement that was trying to get us to buy something from our classroom to home, back to our classroom the next day, one day. And I'm like, this is going to be boring. There's like, we're in a tiny town. We're in a town of 20,000 people. Like, how much could there be? And I would tell, like, it would take us hours to get out of this room, even, which is a pretty like minimally, we're in a minimalist room. This place is very calming. I'm chill. There's not much in here to stimulate, but there are a few things, right? And I would have to sit there and name every single one of these, and then you get into like the colors and all the things that are trying to grab our attention, that are trying to tell us to be this, become this, that we could do this. They're trying to make promises to us. And so when he said that, I was like, this is going to be easy. But when I got out, I just started looking at everybody's shoes. I don't know. I'm like, there's hundreds of people walking by. I'm like, oh gosh, that said Nike, and that said Reebok, and this says Adidas, and this, that one's a Nike. Like and then I'm like, wait, they have pants, they have shirts, they got hats on. Oh my gosh, like USC, LA, University of Wyoming, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, this is impossible. I can't even get out down the hallway without seeing media, without saying things that are suggesting that I should be different, that I should be more like this, that I should be more like that. We live in a place where, oh my goodness, there are promises everywhere. Everyone's trying to sell something, and usually the thing behind it is profit, right? Like usually there's something behind. Profit is very powerful, like there are powerful people behind everything that comes in front of us, and when it gets in front of us, it's trying to pull us in. It's trying to pull us one way or the other. And that's from when we're little kids to when we grow up, and we have tons of modeled behavior. You look at Kobe, you're like, I want to be like Kobe. The guy's dedicated. He's a killer. You look at Michael Jordan was my guy when I was growing up. Anything, like, consider all of the influence. So back to your question, why is it so hard why do we listen to the outside voices instead of listening to this internal calling? I don't even really think we have a structure in place that teaches us to listen to an internal calling. School is designed to create employees, to create good employees, people who can show up on time, who can do the work assigned to them, not the work they care about necessarily. And that's what it is. Can you sit quietly? Can you listen to instruction? Can you Can you execute on the instruction? And to what degree can you be accurate in that? And we do that over and over and over and over and over again. And kids like me who are neurodivergent to the hilt, are like, I'm dumb, or we're like, I'm not capable, or I maybe can't do this or that because the reflection. So for me in school, I either pretty much got A's or F's, and it usually had everything to do with how much homework. I did no homework. I actually had a whole argument about, if you can't get your job done in the 50 minutes allotted to you, why am I being penalized for it? I think the teacher should be penalized for that. Like, I give you 50 minutes of my time and you want me to go extra because you weren't efficient enough to have us get it done in the time allowed. You want me to use my personal time? Yeah. And I was a challenger from day one. And
was that in your second grade class?
That was second grade, yeah. Mrs. Kukuchka, shout out to you. I'm so sorry for what I put you through. I didn't realize at the time.
So how do you get people to first find their calling? First, you got to believe that you actually have a calling. Yeah. So that's a leap of faith that I don't know how you can figure that out until you actually just trust somebody or see someone or you're inspired enough to say, I believe that God's given me a calling. And then you take that leap. How do you figure it out? And then I have a follow-up question to that. How do you find your calling?
So I think when first you have to believe you have a calling. Well, when you sit down, you go, I'm all good. Everything's all good. Wow. And do you probably no one feels that way unless you're a monk or you've reached some level of Zen that namaste, respect, good job. But for the rest of us, you do certain things and you go, wow, that felt great. That was awesome. And you do certain other things, you go, that felt icky. Did not like, right? And those things are different for a lot of people. So if one feels good and it feels good to you, but it didn't feel good to them, and the thing that felt bad feels good for other people, wouldn't you think that maybe there's a calling, that those things that are giving you green lights are bringing you closer to what you ought to be doing, and those things that are giving you cold, prickly red lights are telling you now colder, colder. And I think life does that. I think God does that. You go, oh, yep, hotter, hotter. Oh, you're burning hot, and I think you can get to that burning hot spot. You're like, dude, I'm flowing. I'm in flow state. I woke up this morning, I set my alarm for 5 o'clock and I did not wake up at 5 o'clock because I was up at 3, dude, because I was pumped, because I'm ready to go. And a lot of people are like, no, I slept till 6. I overslept my alarm. I didn't really want to do it. I'm like, well, you're probably not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're probably not what do you want to do? What do you feel called to do? And I feel like, we learn over time to shut that thing off. Hey, it's not what you're called to do. You do what you have to do. You do what you have to do. I really feel like we have a culture, and I think everything is driven by culture, which is heavily why Go Fast exists, right? It's not policy or legislation that drives people to, if you create a legislature that people don't agree with, they'll break the law. If you create policy that people don't believe in, they'll break the policy and then keep a secret. And secret's the dark. That's where the mold grows. That's where your businesses fall apart. That's where anything falls apart, is when people don't have trust and they have to do things in the dark, and they're doing things in the dark because there's not trust, there's not communication. If there's not communication, the whole thing crumbles, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, a business, whatever it is, right? Your question was, how do we get people to, one, if you don't believe you have a calling, just do you want to do are there things that are good for you and things that are bad for you? Probably, right? Probably there's a calling.
I think the argument to that is there's Darwinian truths and Newtonian truths. Mm-hmm. And the Darwinian truths are things that are going to, if you start with the Newtonian truths, those are things that are true regardless. The Darwinian truths are the things that are going to help you live a better existence. Mm-hmm. So whether you believe in God or not, take a step back and say, will my life be more fulfilled if I buy into this idea that I do have a calling, that one was given to me, and if I align my actions with it, my life will be more fulfilled. And then if that is true for you, whether you believe it or not, it fits into that Darwinian category that's going to enhance your life. And then you have to figure out, how do you give yourself permission with all those other voices? How do you ignore them? Every single time I have this conversation with somebody, of helping them find their why, the word can't and the phrase have to come up so frequently. Like, bro, why is that even part of your vocabulary? is it true that you really can't? Like maybe there's some undesirable consequences.
It's almost true. It's true because you say so,
it's
right?
True because you
find what you're looking for. We just did the Devil's Stone run, which is sort of like manifesto incarnate for Go Fast Don't Die. We do this ride, and it is a very special ride. It is different than any other thing that I've ever been to, because we focus on culture first. And in the beginning of that ride, I say, guys, we put together this 3-4 day ride with 200 people, and we want it to be 200 of our closest friends. That's kind of the idea. We want you guys to make friends. This is not about me. This is not about, this brand is not a hierarchy where there's like, oh, that's the king and we are the people. This brand is, you are the brand. You are the brand. You are the business. You are the thing. All the credit to you guys. And for this brand to live, to exist, to breathe, to actually be a brand, because you can say anything you want. We have a saying, your life, not your words, not your words or doctored images is your message to the world. Your life is your message to the world. I said at the beginning of that thing, if you want to find the holes in this event where we missed something, where there wasn't something provided to you, where something didn't get executed on time, you will find it. You will absolutely find the holes. And if you want to find friends and community and culture, a culture of care, and when you want to find beautiful mountains and streams and beautiful roads and wonderful experiences and great headspace in your helmet on this trip, you will find that as well. And what you're looking for, you will find. What you choose to look for, you will find. And I guess like people who say like, oh, I can't. Well, yeah, probably you can't, right? Like, and that's probably why you are where you are, because you've chosen. So isn't that proof? Haven't we proven it to you? You said you couldn't and you couldn't. Boom. You're in control. I think people can find their calling by, you look up to something. You see someone, you go, wow, they're so successful. Wow, they're so cool. There are a lot of different people that think a lot of different people are cool. Mm-hmm. Who do you think is cool? You don't think that's unique about you? You don't think your experience is completely unique from many others' experiences? You're the only you. You're the only one who's done you. And what do you want to be? What story do you want to tell? And our whole brand is built on that. It's built in the last moments of your life. I want you to look back and smile and go, nice. That went well. That was great. Not look back and go, I should have done it differently. Right. And I think this podcast, especially because a lot of the other podcasts that I do are more in alignment with like motorcycle lifestyle type of things. And those guys, honestly, like they're my people for sure. But I probably, as far as like an intellectual exchange, fit more with the listeners of this podcast, because I love talking about this stuff. And a lot of times we get so, when you're in a culture of like where success is the main thing, and we consider success money, fame, power, we start, we're starting to, I want to be more successful than that guy. I want to tell him how successful I am. That's how I attach my value. I love the idea of challenging that thing. I love the idea of saying like, well, what are you called to do? And every, people who are capable or who have chosen an I can attitude, they can, right? And they go, oh yeah, I'm going to date this girl. I'm going to look like this. I'm going to have a 6-pack. I'm going to have this much money in my bank account, right? I'm going to have this house. And what I find is sometimes that's beautiful and wonderful, and those are right in alignment with what they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes they're not. That's up to the individual to know, because we are individually called, right? They get there, they achieved. For some reason, they don't feel satisfied. They get there, they achieve. Some reason, it's not it for them. They get there, they get there. And those people are people who have chosen to be capable, but what they are pursuing, what they're creating, is something that someone else told them was success. Mm-hmm. So they get there, they arrive at the place, and they're like, why isn't it all good?
That's an unbelievable amount of pressure, though. We've said this quote on this podcast quite a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times in the 40 episodes, that the majority of the world's problems stem from men's inability to sit by themselves in a room with their own thoughts for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
How does somebody why can't we do that? Why can't we just sit there and listen? Why can't we go 800 miles and just listen without the music, without the if you don't know your why, turn the podcast off right now, go sit in a quiet room and figure it out. Like, that's the most valuable thing that you could do. But if people look back on their days, like they wake up, get on their phone, entertain the entire day, or have conflict at work, whatever it is, and then the last thing that they look at before they go to bed is their phone. Like, there's not time in people's lives to have this. Is it just that's it? It's just the choice?
There is only time in people's lives. I have this tattoo that says invest your time on my arm, and it's on the back of my arm, and I wish it was on the front of my face, because I think it's the most. I have on my hand, it says the work is never done, and that means a lot to me, and I think that is they're in line, but it says invest your time, and I'm sure there are a lot of really successful investors here, they've made a lot of money, right? And maybe they're like, I'm not stoked, and they don't want to tell anybody that, right? I've had so many conversations with people like, they will never tell anyone, and if I told anybody that they told me that, they would deny it, you know. And so if that's you, consider your time. Consider, like, man, you've got everything, right? If you've got everything and you don't have the ability to hit pause on it, what do you have? What do you really have?
It has you.
It has you, yeah. I had this insane dream. My life is full of dreams. I had this crazy dream, and I won't get into all the details, but the premise of the dream was I woke up and I was bound to a hitch behind a truck, and I can see like the feet of someone getting in the truck, right? And they get in, and I hear the truck start. I'm like, oh, hey, excuse me, I happen to be bound to the back of this truck. This is not good. Do not go. And they start going, and I'm so grateful that I can share this dream these days without like super emotional heaviness. I've shared it enough now. But for a while, like, it was really potent. It still is very potent. But the truck starts driving, and I start like walking, you know, kind of behind the truck, like backwards, like this, you know. And I'm trying to yell like, hey, I'm back here. I'm attached. Do you know that I'm attached? Like, are you doing this on purpose, or like, what's going on? And pretty soon you can hear the truck shifting. And it's going faster. Pretty soon I can't run that fast. I'm trying to skip, and then it's third, and then it's fourth, and my legs are just dragging, and my feet are being torn apart, my shoes are being torn apart, my pants are being torn apart, and pretty soon we're just flying in top gear, and my legs are just dragging, and I'm like bouncing up and down, and I'm being torn to bits. It's a gory, gross, awful, and I'm just screaming. For a while I'm screaming, and then I just kind of stop, and I'm just crying, you know, because I have no control. I'm just being drugged and torn apart, and I'm going to die here from loss of blood. And this is a gory thing to say, but it's far less than us spending our lives in the wrong way. Eventually the truck comes to a stop, and I'm just like, why? Why would you do this to me? Why would this happen to me? And I look up, and there's no rope, there's no chain, there's no handcuffs. I'm holding on to the ball of the truck. And that, like, if that's not like gives me goosebumps every time I tell this story. If that's not like the greatest metaphor for whatever that thing is. We have a saying at Go Fast, we have a shirt that says, let go for dear life. And man, like, whatever it is, if it's your version of success, if it's your idea of success, and it has you, the things you hold end up holding you. Let go, you know? That's success. I mean, that's a start, right? That's the crazy thing about life is you die in the end. We all go to the same spot, right? So us, and we should, I believe that we should model behavior for someone else who might have our experience and might be able to have a better one from the things that we learn, you know? Anyway, that was a deep share, so.
No, as you're talking, Brady, it reminded me of, and I love that we're talking about purpose and truth in the same hour, because I find those they can only go together. As you're talking, it reminded me of an experience that I had. I think I was 20, 21. I read this book of this guy, lived an incredible life, and I just felt like, okay, I need to find my why. Like, I need to find my purpose.
Yeah.
So what I did for an entire month, I read a bunch of talks, articles. I read a book. I'm going to find my why. So at the end of the month, I wrote down the three most important things for me. And I was like, proud. I have my why. Now I have my purpose. Mm-hmm. And then only this year I realized that I had written something that sounded cool. that I was proud to show others, but it had nothing to do with who I was.
Yeah.
And only this year I was able to, after actually some episodes, an episode that we had with Nate, I went on this journey to find, I'm not going to share this with anyone. This is just for me to say in front of the mirror. And I've been able to kind of find my why. But I feel like there's this, I just want to vocalize that because people might be working on their why to sound cool, to say in front of an audience. And it's not that. It's a deep soul search of who you are.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask the question, like, what is the likely outcome of someone who doesn't first find their why and second doesn't align with it?
Well, the outcome is that you're going to find a different one, right? Like, I really believe, rumination is a cancer for people. We sit and we think about thinking, and we think about what I should be doing, and I can't move until I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I don't want to go because I don't want to fail, especially not in front of people, so I don't take the chance. And I would wager that everyone who's listening to this podcast who is quote unquote successful in any form has been unsuccessful over and over and over and over and over again. They know what it's like to the stair steps to success are created by failures. So my advice to anyone, rumination is not reformation. And if you can sit and pick something to hit the go on, just throw a bunch of words and pull out a few. Be like, well, I want to be courageous and I want to be this, I want to be these things. Go do those things. I want to be this thing. I want to be a rock star with this, and I want to have $1 million in the bank, and I want to have these shoes, and I want to drive this car. Go get that done, right? Sure. Go get that done. And through the process of doing that, maybe you'll achieve it, or maybe somewhere in that process you go, I'm actually super unfulfilled. I don't want to be around the people that I'm around. I don't actually look, now that I've met some of the people that I looked up to so much, I realize what the truth is behind the facade, all those things, right? But start. I'm a huge believer in just getting started, just hitting the go button, go and learn. You started in outdoor sales or like door-to-door sales, and you're like, okay, I'm going to hit the go button. And through that process, another thing that you said, Court, is that you found community in Idaho. You found some friends. You found some people that were that were supportive of you, that were like accepted you for you, and you guys went out and did the thing together. And I think that's massively valuable. That's what Devilstone Run's about. That's what our brand is about creating community around an idea that we're all out here searching for to live our best story, live our life's best story. And when you find people who are around you who are encouraging you to do that, whatever that looks like, not to benefit them, but to benefit you. They're like, hey, I know who you are, man. This isn't who you are. You love this thing. What are you doing? You're listening to the world. You're listening to these outside things. And you go, oh yeah, you know what? I actually did that thing that I thought was the thing. And I was successful in that by these 3 bucket standards, but I do not feel aligned at all. You're right. I should go do something else. And for me, for a lot of entrepreneurs, we got to go find out, right? We go, hey, that's a dead end road. Like, well, let me walk down to the end of it. And when I get down there, I'll come back and I'll believe you. And I will know that it's a dead end road because I went down it, right? Yeah. And a lot of us have to do that. And I love that. The worst thing we can do is just stand still. I believe the worst thing we can do is stand still. That's the whole go fast, don't die thing. The go fast is go and do it. Like, go live a life that feels fast. And the don't die is small deaths, right? Is giving up. Don't do these things that are small. There's if you type in what does go fast, don't die mean, it'll pull up the article. If you just type it in Google, type what does go fast, don't die mean to us, or what does don't die mean to us, you'll find a Marianne Williamson poem it's called Dies Slowly, and it oh man, like it'll hit you, and it's beautiful. So yeah, do that, your homework, because I couldn't get my job done in the 15 minutes I was allotted.
There's this story of a father and a son traveling, and they get to a bifurcation. Is that the right way to say it?
Fork in the road?
Yeah, like there's 2 ways, right? And they don't know which one.
That's a great way to say fork in the road.
Bifurcation.
Yeah. Fork in the road is like, you're an old poet, but you sound smart. I love it.
And then they don't know which way to go. And then they talk and like they say a prayer, and then they take the right. and then they drive for a couple of hours and they hit a dead end. And then now they have to come back and then take the other road. And then the son asked the father, like, why did we feel that we should go there? Like, and it wasn't the right one. And then the dad said, because now we can drive for the next 40 hours without wondering if we are on the right path. But that only happened because they failed. And we're so afraid of, I just kind of related to what you're saying, we're so afraid of failure, right? But you just got to go, get up, go.
And they got in alignment with where they were supposed to go by going and finding out. And they went and found out. They went and explored. They said, hit the go button. And you go, this is not where I belong. And when you have tried the things that where you don't belong, where you're not called, you have much more confidence and you can feel it. And we're like, oh no, this is my gear. This wasn't my gear. This is my gear. And we die in the end, right?
Yeah.
I think that for some people that's depressing. For me, that's like, so like, dude, sweet. Like, go. This is all a game. This is all a big thing. And you get to go make the best story that you can make. Go make a story that you will be proud to tell in the end. And I think that those money, fame, power, those are byproducts. Those happen because people live a great story. Because they choose that. Sometimes they pursue that and they succeed in finding that. And a lot of times those people who have found that type of success, you see them, they want to serve. They want to go, they want to donate, they want to support causes. They maybe want to go build houses. I've met a lot of those guys through building houses and that kind of thing. But they find that like, hey, this actually isn't my thing, but I have these resources and I do want to serve. And that's a beautiful story too. And there's, you're never too late. That's, I think, a huge piece of it. There's no, sunk cost fallacy is a major thing in life. It's not just in business, like in life. Just because everything that you have done up to this point right now, this literal point where you're listening to this podcast, has prepared you for what you're going to do next. And what you're going to do next, a lot of people know what they're supposed to do. They're scared, And it's like, dude, you're going to get to the end. And I'm way more scared to get to the end and be like, dang it, I knew I should have done this, than I am to just do the thing right now.
I wrote down a bunch of questions.
Fire, dude.
Can I ask one more related to that?
Please.
So we're talking about purpose, and I want to segue. Just one small question for entrepreneurs. So we're talking about your why, your purpose, and the truth. Doing that with truth. I feel like entrepreneurs don't spend enough time. They hit the spreadsheets and then they go and they start building a business and start serving customers, but they never really figure out why they are in business.
Yeah.
Or if you just could, a piece of advice for why the importance of figuring out that piece as an entrepreneur, not the self thing, but for the business, like spending enough time in the lab, figuring out the purpose for the business to exist. Why is that important in the trajectory of the business?
Well, I think you want to be an expert in the subject matter, right? So if you can find the problems in your life or a problem that you have run into in your life, and the more life you've lived, the more things that you've gone and done, the more you'll find this. But if you can find something you're like, hey, you know what? This is a big problem that I see. And a lot of times we just deal with problems, right? Yeah. Like, we're just like, yeah, well, I can't make the horse any faster, so we'll just keep, trying these little such and such. And somebody at some point slowed down enough or stepped back far enough to go, I think we need a different thing. What if we build an automobile? I think look for the problems in your life. Look for the friction in your life. If you can remove friction from people, and this is tough, man, because for me, I'm sort of like, I love friction in your life because I think problem solving is so beneficial to us. I think we move too fast. We're just getting faster. This has been like my season right now. On my heart is like, dude, slow down. You've got to slow down. Like, we're going so fast. We used to ride horses. I just went to this wedding in Ohio. So my last month and a half was, I went to this family reunion. My grandpa passed away earlier this year, so my grandma and grandpa, they always went to Deadwood for their anniversary, and so their anniversary is a big deal to all of us, but we're usually just excited to watch them go do it. Well, now obviously my grandpa can't make it. He's up watching us, so we had this family reunion. A hilarious story. My mom booked a like a polygamous sex cult compound as our Airbnb, which is a story for another day. We run it
shared, or you guys had the whole thing to yourself?
No, we had the whole thing. Yep. It's used to be now. Wasn't that thing when we got there. Hilarious though. I love my mom. That's one of my favorite things she's ever done. It was very funny. But right after that, we had ADV Fest, which is a big motorcycle off-road thing. Right after ADV Fest, we went and shot a short film with my friend Mike Smith, who's a public speaker. He started he's probably one of my favorite entrepreneurs. He started a skate park called The Bay in Lincoln, Nebraska, and turned it into a public high school. It is now a public high school. Skate park turned into a high school. You want to talk about a hero of mine? He and I went out and did a project in Nebraska. Right after that, actually right before that was Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. So in between all that was that thing. We got done with that. I went back home to do Devilstone Run to Magical Mystery Tour, which is the thing we do. Magical Mystery Tour to this wedding. I had to go to Ohio for a friend's wedding to support him and stand with him in his beginning of his new chapter. And then it came home, and it was my birthday, and now it's today. So like my last 8 weeks have just been absolutely fully bonkers. So we are celebrating it together real time. But as I was going to Ohio, I was thinking heavily. It was heavy on my mind. I was like, man, we go too fast. I'm on a plane, and I'm like, all right, when's this plane going to land? Why does this take so long? Why is it taking me 4.5 hours to get to Ohio? It's crazy. And then I'm watching No Country for Old Men. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Wildly slow-paced movie. At least I think so, right? And I'm watching, and they're going into these details. There's this scene in there where the guy he's deciding basically whether to kill this nice farm guy who's running the convenience store, running the gas station. And he goes in there, and he's like, he's deciding whether to kill him. He tells him to flip the coin. He's like, well, what do I stand to win? He's like, everything. You stand to win everything or lose everything. Flip the coin. Or no, he said, choose heads or tails. And he's like, well, I don't quite understand. It's just going so slow, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's such a painful thing. And I know he's deciding to kill him. He's like, well, I suppose. And this whole guy's story, right? He was a young kid. He fell in love with this girl. This girl's parents ran the convenience store and owned this land, so they moved out there, and they live in the house in the back, and they run the store. That Midwestern, slow-paced living, and that's where I'm headed to, right? Ohio. So I'm like, God's just putting all this stuff in front of me to be like, hey, and everything He's putting in front of me is slow down. So I'm wrestling watching this movie, and I love this movie. It's one of my favorites. But I'm wrestling with the tension of the slow pace of this movie, and I'm just like, I can't handle it. And I've seen it before, right? So I know what's about to happen. So it made it even worse. I was like, just get to the end. And I think sometimes we have that thing where I'll just get to the end of this. We can get started with the next thing. So we get to the end of that. So we can get to the end of that. So we get to the end of that. And we can get caught in that process and forget to step back and think. We forget to take a big step back and go, what, why am I doing this? Anyway, the thing there was the next movie I watched was The Magnificent Seven. And there's a whole story plot to that, right? They save a town, all these things. But the whole time, the only thing I could think when I'm watching that movie, I was like, we used to ride horses. I'm annoyed. I feel like this plane needs to go faster. If I needed to get to Ohio back in these guys' day, he's like, he'll be back in 3 weeks' time. Well, he just went to California. Why is it taking him 3 weeks, And I'm like, man, we are so silly. We have all this modern technology. We're faster than ever. Amazon gets there in 2 days, which they don't really anymore. But, well, not to Wyoming. You got to ride a horse, right? But, and I don't feel like we are more patient. I don't feel like we have more time. Yeah. It's like, guys, time that's the commodity. That's the one we can't get more of. That's the one we don't get to check our balance on. That's the most special, precious thing is our time and our energy. What are we spending it on? What are we investing? Are we spending it or are we investing it? And I believe we have to spend it. You're forced to, right? You can invest it or you can spend it. It's going to go either way. And, anyway, I just have been thinking about that. I'm like, I need to slow down. I need to make the active choice to slow down, right? The active choice to sit in a room with my thoughts for an extended period of time. Because that is, not only is that's uncomfortable, I can't even watch I'm sitting here watching a movie going, go faster, get to the end of this, Anyway, my advice to those people is find the problem, remove some friction. And maybe that means remove some friction in getting out of the speed, right? We're going too fast. My feeling right now So find what your current problem is. My current issue is that I can't breathe. Oh, I got something in my throat. That was amazing. My current thing is that I feel like we're going too fast.
Yes.
If I feel like we're going too fast, someone else feels that way, I promise. And we have the internet now, so we can reach these niche communities who feel the same way as us. I guarantee you that's not a niche community. That's a massive, massive, massive community. And a lot of very successful people in that community. So if we're going too fast, what is a way that I could help people slow down? What's a way that I could help people escape? And that's mine right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll have a new one tomorrow. But for those people who are looking to start doing something, what is an issue that you're facing in your life? What is some friction in your life? And what could you, with your unique capability and your unique self and your unique calling, why are you passionate about solving that problem? Mm-hmm. And if you're not passionate about solving that problem, other than maybe there's money on the other side of it, then ask, why do you need the money? Right? Because people think they need money to buy time, and they end up chasing so much money they spend all their time,
to do what?
And then the time runs out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, dang it, you were so successful, dude. Good job. And they're like, that was horrible.
Oh, I love that. I had a one-on-one with one of my managers this morning, and she's going out of town tomorrow for 2 days, and she's kind of stressed about the fact that she's going to be out, and then things are going to fall apart because she's not going to be here. And then I told her, like, honestly, for me, the times that I've been able to grow my team the most is when I remove myself and I just take notes of everything that goes wrong.
That's it.
I come back and build the processes so now they can operate without me. Okay, next time I'm out of town, I just notice everything that goes wrong, document, come back, fix them, and that's when I make progress the most. Sometimes you're just in the trenches and you just don't see those because you're fixing them yourself.
That, to me, what I always hear when I hear that, one, I go, hey, thank you, and big hug. Thank you for caring about our mission, and also pat myself on the back as a team leader, because if your people are aligned with your why, if they care about your mission enough to where like it's hard for them to go spend time on their own, good job, because they're aligned, they're stoked. Yeah. That's beautiful. A lot of people in a lot of jobs, they cannot wait to get out of the office, right? Yeah. If they get off at 4:58, they're out the door, they're locking the door early. Yeah. That's bad culture, right? Like that's not because they're bad employees. That's because they're in the wrong place, right? I really believe that. Or they have the wrong leadership. That can be solved with a number of, that's a placement thing. But one, shout out to you. Good job leading those people and getting them to believe in the mission. Two, God bless her for caring enough to be like, it's hard for me to leave. I don't want things to fall apart, whatever, right? But to me, I'm always like, when you travel, are you like, we can't stop at the gas station? We absolutely don't have the time for it. We have to be there in 6 hours, and if we stop at the gas station, that's going to cost us 20 minutes, right? It's like, well, we'll run out of gas. Do you think we're going to get there faster if we run out of gas?
And when we get there, we're just going to sit in the living room with each other anyways.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen when you get there?
Right. And yeah, exactly.
I put together a list. I want somebody to be able to walk away from this conversation. I'm sure they're going to be inspired by it. I want them to be able to have clarity on what's the stuff that they can take in the next 24 hours. So I wrote some things down. We'll love any action items for you guys to contribute to this. I think a good place for them to start is with some questions. What's some friction in your life? You mentioned that. What do you love? How can you best serve others? What's your most important work? What's your life's best story? And then after you ask some of those questions, surround yourself by people that are going to encourage you to go down that path, not the path that they want for their own ego being served, and go fast. Any other action items you would add to that, or any other questions you would encourage people to ask?
If you're actually ready for this, and a lot of people aren't, but if you're actually ready for this, go and write your own obituary. Sit and write, here lies Brady. Brady was what? What do you want people to say? Because there's going to be a lot of people, especially when you are successful, when you have money, you have fame, you have power, people are going to surround you because they are succubuses, right? And also, like, that's not necessarily like a bad thing or a knock on them. They're trying to get successful too. So why wouldn't they come around you, right? Do they love you? I don't know. But the people who come to your funeral, you're dead now. You really have not much to offer you're not going to be that impressed with the fact that they're around, right? Because you are checked out. But who's going to be at your funeral? Consider those people, and what do you want them to say about you? What are the words that you hope they will say? And I challenge you to write that obituary and say, here lies Brady, he was, and write the best one you can write. Not according to what you are right now, but like, hey, I really want to hear me hearing these. This is how I used to define success. If people say this at my funeral, that I was this, because the people who are at your funeral, they're people that loved you. They're people that are sad that you're gone. They're people that know you well. They're not the fleeting show up and models and bottles and all that kind of thing that we all experience when you reach certain levels of success. What do you want them to say about you? And then say, what can I change, or how can I embody these things in my life to where my KPI, right, which I don't like that word because I'm hurt. But, my key performance indicator is going to be that I hear this from the people that are close to me. Not that I go tell them like, hey, I really want you to say that I'm brave. I really want you to say that I'm a great leader. I really want you to say that I'm bold in action. You don't go embody those things. And when you hear people say those words that you wrote on your obituary, that will be landmarks to you being in alignment for who you want to be in life. I think that's incredibly powerful, and I would challenge anybody to do that if you're ready, but be really serious about it, and then take each one of those words and expand on that word. What would you do in your life to make someone say that about you? I want to be trustworthy. Well, go earn trust. What does that look like? What does that look like in your life? What does it look like for you to fulfill on the things that you say you're going to do? From the littlest, smallest thing to the biggest thing,
The interesting thing is, if you think of time as relative, that future dead version of yourself already exists. And all of those things have already been said if time is happening now. So if you can figure out how to channel that and have that be the most important voice in your life of all the Nikes, Adidas, Reeboks, everything on the shirts and the hats and the billboards and the Instagram, the most important voice to channel is the end of life, or 3 months from now, or 12 months from now, or 5 years from now. How do you channel that voice? And I love that action of what would I have to do to accomplish that? And then figure, if you are going to use the word or the phrase have to in your life, that's the time. I have to do these things that are going to result in those outcomes. I must do those things. I can't not do those things that are going to result in that. And that's the time to apply these restrictions to yourself so that you lock in, I'm going to be what I need to be to have those things said.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait.
Do it now.
Do it now. Now is all there is. You've never been to tomorrow. Now's what you got, right? So if you want to be trustworthy, pick whatever word, right? But if you want to be trustworthy, in 5 minutes when someone asks you a question and it would be more convenient to tell a small lie, and practice, right? You get better at doing the things by doing the things. Start right now. Do not say, on Monday, I'm going to start this new diet. That's the starts tomorrow diet. No one ever been to tomorrow.
I'm myself right now.
Yeah. But right now, though, I'm good, Knock it off. Come on. You got this.
I've loved this podcast. I just want to ask one question, and then I want to do a little bonus material because I want to hear about your experience in Asia.
Absolutely.
I think that's into your why. So if you jump off right now, you'll have heard the full episode, but you're going to miss out on some incredible story that we're about to hear from Brady. The question I want to ask you is, what is your why, Brady?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. As far as when it comes to, I guess depending on what facet of my life, when it comes to go fast, the thing that I found was these people, this culture, this community. One, I saw a big problem where they didn't have permission. For a long time, if you wanted to be a motorcycle rider and you wanted to go fit into that culture, you had to look like this, act like this, be like this, and fit into this thing. And I started telling you a story about when I was real young and I went to a metal concert, and they basically said like, hey, if you're not getting trashed, you don't belong here. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I belong. I'll get trashed. Does anybody have any alcohol they would borrow me so that I can get trashed? Obviously, that's what I like to do, you know? And I'm like, dude, no. Like, that's not, I would sacrifice everything that I was so that I could belong. And I see people all over the place from joining, from anything, right? In business, in motorcycle culture. I saw people who, there was not a path. There was not a thing that said, hey, you can be whoever you are and you can fit into this community. So we started a brand, and brands drive culture, right? We started a brand that says, hey, you can be you. You can quote unquote ride whatever. You can be whatever. You can be exactly what you are. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to act a certain way. And we encourage people to live their life's best story. And if that involves a motorcycle, we love that. So one was to create an open space, to create a space for people to become, for people to be who they were. Because I think when you give people freedom, I think that America is such a beautiful example of that. Our history is like, hey, when you let people be free, you let them choose what they want to do, they're going to value that thing and they're going to pursue it and they're going to expand upon it. And when we have free speech and we can say what we want to say, we're going to get to the best possible version. Right? I think that's what's so special. So when you allow people to be free to say, hey, you don't have to wear that. You don't have to look like that. You don't have to act like this. You don't have to be hard with your feelings. You don't have to, like you can come out here and be emotional, man. So creating a space, I felt like was my way to contribute to this culture and community that brought me up out of a dark place. Right? So my friction was I was in this dark place. I was gifted the gift of presence, the gift of I realized that these people are actually deep people. That conversation with the guy who I would think had 3 brain cells and probably drinks himself to sleep every night based on my own stereotypical, like, when I hate stereotypes, like I hate buying into those things. I'm tattooed and have weird hair and I'm a goofy guy. I'm no stranger to all of that. But I had kind of written him off as a certain type. I thought I knew him, and he had a lot to share with me that I didn't recognize. So it opened my eyes and said, man, this is a deep culture. This is a deep community. This is a community of depth. This is a community of individuals. I would like to, 1, invite people more into this culture, and 2, invite this culture to live more into who they are. So with Go Fast, Don't Die, that is heavily it. And with the rest of my life, the Heartbreaker tour, my why, and anyone's why, I think the beginning of that is to serve. And in any scenario, in any specific thing, you can go to serve. How do I serve this way? The why is to serve always. And the why to serve that community is, or the how to the why on that community is everything I just shared with you. And we could go on all day about, like my why for all the little things I do, but for Go Fast, that's it, to contribute to the culture and community that inspired the existence of the brand.
Thanks for sharing that. It's so interesting. We've talked so much about somebody doing some internal work to figure this out, ask themselves the question, go and do, and it's all about them and their story. When at the end of the day, they find that by asking, how can I bless someone else's story? Mm-hmm. How can I help someone else out? And that is what illuminates the path. So I appreciate you sharing that.
The only way out is in.
Love it. Let's go into this Asia
bonus content.
You
are now in the bonus side of the video.
Only for paid subscribers.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like we.
So Toby said when he gets there, you got to ask him. Like, he has some amazing experience of helping out with fighting sex trafficking in Asia. Make sure you guys get into that.
Yeah, and it's far more. I was actually super surprised when you said that. I'm like, who told you that? Because it's kind of a. It's it's kind of a secret thing, kind of not a. You go behind. It's all undercover work, right? So it's all like, no one knows who you are. You've got to be pretty. Obviously you're undercover, right? And I really think it's important to tell this story. I really think it's important to people in this side of the world who we just are so blind, we're like concerned with our own things. Like the Starbucks closes at 8 now. Like, I can't get there by 8 o'clock. I don't get off till 8 o'clock, and I was, whatever. Which I don't know if people drink. Don't drink coffee at night, guys. Caffeine will interrupt your circadian rhythm and all that. But yeah, it is more than sex trafficking. It's just human trafficking in general, and it is so real, man. And it's so real. And the thing that I've learned through that work is that evil does not dress up like Lord Palpatine, and wear this dark cloak and have red eyes. Like we grow up with sort of these where we see evil and it looks like evil, right? It looks like it's in betweens. It's right in the in betweens of every single day life, and a lot of times evil is dressed up like it belongs, evil looks like every day. You see it right in front of you and you think, oh, well, that doesn't look evil. We sort of grow up with this idea, right, that it's going to be this dark, scary, 3-headed dragon or wolf or whatever. That's evil. It's going to be this bad guy. He's going to have the hood up and, a gun in his pocket. And in reality, like it looks like everyday life. And that's how it survives really well. So the work that we were doing in Asia, there are these massive scamming compounds. And so sex trafficking is all over the place, but maybe larger than sex trafficking is I don't want to say regular. I hate that. But human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And the idea here or what's happening is you go, hey, Court, I got a job for you. And it's going to be better than any job you can get. I know you're from a place where, there's not a lot of resources. We've got a great job for you. We know that you can type on a computer. We know that you speak English. We know these things, right? I'd like you to fly to, we're going to fly you out to here. And then we're going to do a job interview, which a job interview is just fake, right? Makes you feel like you're like, oh, I did good. I'm doing it. You'd run you through a job interview. Oh, turns out you got the job. We're going to take your passport and your phone until you pay off the plane ticket. And then once you pay off the plane ticket, all the money's yours. And you can send it home, and then, you can leave whenever you want. And they go, yeah, cool. Here's my stuff. Thank you for paying for my plane ticket. So I got to pay you back whatever, $400 for the ticket. And then, but I'm going to be making $1,200 every month. So I'm going to be able to get my family out of poverty. I'm going to be able to do a lot of good with this job. I'm really stoked. I'll do anything. And then we're going to bus you up to this spot, and then we're going to cross this river. And once you cross this river, you're toast. You're toast. You're not a civilian here. You have no rights here. No one knows your name here, and no one cares. You are a human, and you have, you're not a human, and you are an employee, or you're a slave, and you belong to us, and you have these quotas. And if you don't meet these quotas, there will be these punishments. And so you're motivated by fear. You are trapped in a place. You've got no connection to the outside world. And you're a slave. You were kidnapped, basically. And it was all under the guise of you chasing a dream or chasing a way to make it better, right? And so the work that we did was really like saying, hey, this is real. This isn't just people saying this is actually happening. So we had to kind of go to the belly of the beast and record it and get, really sketchy stuff. A lot of the stuff that we were doing was a lot of the stuff that people can't do because of who they are, because of jurisdiction, because of if they tried to do this, they would get shut down. There are places where the government can't go. Like imagine like, hey, CIA can't come into Salt Lake City. We don't allow them to come in. Like imagine like the U.S. government is not allowed here. That would never happen, right? Like we can't imagine that happening. Well, that's happening. And there's a lot of money behind it, right? There's a lot of money in scamming. I'm sure you guys have gotten texts where it's like, hey, is this Charlie? This is Bethany, right? Guys get those texts? You get calls, you get texts. You're like, hey, we want you to go buy this card and we'll add money to it. Whatever it is. There's a billion different things out there. But a lot of times, and we were
thinking in our minds, why would somebody do this? Like, why would they choose to have this as their career? But
Yeah, and not only that, we're like you dirt bag, you know. I used to love messing with those people. One time we got a call at my parents' house, and my uncle answered the phone. Like, we loved just to mess with these people, and now I'm like, ugh, I feel really icky about all the messing with, because they have quotas. So I wasted a bunch of their time because they were wasting my time, right? So I'm like, well, I'll waste your time and I'll get my work done while I'm just keeping you on the phone. But I'm wasting their time, and they're going to get beat for it, or they're gonna have to go stand on their feet for hours on end as a punishment. You know, all kinds of, I mean, even passed down the line to where, like, you get passed down far enough, like I never saw this with my eyes, but they have organ harvesting, like, and that's kind of like, well, if you don't do good enough, you can just keep going down and you'll enter this world, because you're not a human. We don't value you as a human. You are here for our profit. You're here to drive this thing. And yeah, evil, man. Like, it exists. It's real. And it looks, you know, it's dressed up pretty nicely. It drives nice cars. It makes great promises, has shiny teeth. You know, the devil doesn't look like a big bad wolf. Doesn't, you know, it looks like a promise that's, you know, there's nothing on the other side of it. It looks like a big shiny promise every time, right? Like, even in our everyday life, things that are evil, things that are not good, a lot of times they look good. They're attractive, whatever it is. And then on the other side of that is heartbreak and darkness. Yeah, so, sorry. What else can I say?
Just wanted to hear your experience and hear your learning, and I appreciate you sharing it. I learned some stuff, and appreciate the perspective.
I think the thing for me, you know, I am, you know, I'm a single guy traveling the world, trying to make a difference, trying to model what it looks like to live your life's best story. And I'm called to serve, right? So I go, this is same thing when I went to build houses in Juarez. I was like, this sounds dangerous. Not everybody can do this. Not everybody necessarily should do this. Because if you've got a family at home and you've got people to take care of, it's probably irresponsible for you to put yourself in a position where you might get hurt and you might not be able to come home, right? Now, unless you have to. That's a tough one, right? But I was like, I'm not in that place. And I can take care of myself really well. I am well-spoken. I think well critically. I think, you know, all of these skills I have to go and do that kind of work. I think I can go do that work successfully. I don't panic in high-pressure situations. I actually get really calm. I was like, I think I'm called to do this. I think the unique giftings that I've been given by God would make me good at this. And I'm a little wild, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to go do that kind of thing. To go stand in front of somebody who, like, might kill you if they found out what you're up to. Probably would, right? And definitely have all the means to do it. Now, we're very fortunate as Americans. Like, a lot of people don't want to mess with Americans, but most Americans don't. We're not even aware.
Is there, now that there is more awareness, is there any action? Like, what action comes from, what's the next step after awareness?
So what we're doing and what we did was basically gather all this intel, gather all this proof that, you know, has now gone to these government agencies, gone to the White House in the U.S., that has gone to the governing bodies of the countries that we're in, so that they can no longer, because what they do is they're all paid, right? Like, that's the other tough thing. Life is a lot better for a lot of those small communities because this evil exists there. And so if I can go, hey man, this might not be, I don't want you to look over here and I don't want you to know anything, but what I want you to know is I'm going to triple your wage. Your life's going to be a lot better since we're around. And we just need you to allow us to put a Wi-Fi tower on your property that points across the river, because we need more support and we need power. And you go, yeah, cool. I allow you to have a Wi-Fi tower, and all of a sudden, like, my family eats better. My life is easier. I can work less and spend more time at home. All these good things. Thank you for blessing my life, right? And when you start looking, when you consider that thing, you go, would you say yes? And you go, no, I would never say yes. I would find out what was behind this company, what was behind these people, what they were doing behind closed doors, and I would veto them. Not only would I veto them, like, I'd get the shotgun out and I'd go stop them in their tracks. And maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. it's hard to like call people out, right? Like I don't want to come home, and I've seen that where you come home and you go, you guys aren't doing enough. You've got your eyes closed, you've got your eyes blinded, and you're just focused on these things. Your life is so good, and you're complaining that the Starbucks doesn't open up early enough or whatever. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that guilt should be a motivator. It's hard because you see like, yeah, I might have done that too. You know, if I just closed my eyes to the outcome of this thing. Now, in a lot of cases, it's impossible to close your eyes because it's massive over there. I think like what people might take away from this. So are there action items? Things are happening. Hopefully, there's a lot of the government there. This is something we realized. We got taken by the police, and we realized real quickly that these guys everyone's bought. They're trying to figure out what to do with us because we're Americans. They have protocols on what to do with people.
And the police caught you.
They didn't catch us. We kind of made up a story and got ourselves caught under a different guise. So we basically were like, hey, we met these people. These people were trafficked people. They were trying to escape. We met these people at our hotel, which was true. But we knew they were really easy to identify. We identified them. We said, hey, do you guys want to watch UFC fights with us? And we sat there and watched UFC fights. Meanwhile, like these people that are watching these guys are right outside. These guys are terrified because they're like, we don't know who you are, but we're just trying to act cool. We don't want to cause a scene. So we got these guys. We bought them pizza and bought them dinner. And I'm like, hey, so what are you guys doing out here? We're doing this. What are you up to? And they're looking at each other and they're like, oh, we're just doing some work, but we're done now. And you're like, oh, cool. So are you flying out, or like, where are you going tomorrow? And like, oh, we might go to a waterfall. And they told us a whole lie, right? They told us a fake thing. And then that morning we stayed up and watched the whole night. That morning they tried to go to the airport. Well, they did go to the airport. When they went to the airport and they had a ticket out, when they went to the airport, obviously they got nabbed. And they go, it's interesting that you guys are here. You're going, and they got arrested for nothing, right? They got arrested because they overstayed their visa, right? Which is a legitimate reason to get arrested. But the reason they overstayed their visa is because they've been held, right, against their will. So it's like, you guys run a perfect thing. You run a perfect little, they're never getting out of hell. They just, even if they do get out, they run into the next level and they pass you right back. And usually it's going to be a lot worse, right? So that you're motivated to stay, because these guys came back, and when they came back, things were a lot worse for them. I don't want that. You can't get out. Anyway. But what we said was like, hey, these guys are our friends. We're trying to make sure that they get home okay. They said they were going home, and what was crazy was when we showed up and we asked the authorities, hey, these people are our friends. What's going on with them? If they have committed a crime and they have a fine, we'll pay it because they're our friends now. And they were stuck. And they were super surprised to see us, right? Because they had lied to us and told us they were going to a waterfall. And then they're like, are these guys your friends? And they kind of looked at us and they're like, oh my gosh, like, you guys actually are our friends. You guys are actually trying to help us get out of here. You're not, because they don't trust anyone, Yeah. And then we're like, and they're like, no, these guys, you guys don't know these guys well enough. They're criminals. And we have to take them away. And we were basically like, yeah, we're not going out of, they tried to outrun us. We're on motorcycles. They're driving like 80 miles an hour through a small town, like that. You do not go 80. There's kilometers. It's all kilometers. It's like 40 kilometers an hour is the speed limit. They're going 80 miles per hour, and I'm chasing them on my bike. I'm like, guys, they could pull me over for speed. I'm like, is that what they're going to do? Pull me over for speeding and arrest me? Like, what's happening here? We're chasing them. My bike can barely go fast enough to chase these guys. And of course we have all of this stuff on video. And then we go in and we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, we just want to what's going on? What exactly is happening here? We just want to make sure our friends get home. And they go, shoot, these idiot Americans are latched onto these guys. Now what do we do? Because they're going to pay attention. They're not going to give up until, and we said like, well, arrest us. Yeah, take us in too, because we want to chat with them. And then we actually got to chat with them. We passed them, equipment, technology that they could record the conversations that they were having on the inside. And so all of that, which is insane intel, right? Where they're like, hey, you need to tell these Americans that you're fine. You need to tell them everything's cool and it's okay to go. They can go. And they did. They came out and told us. They didn't know we had a recording device on the inside, but they came out and told us like, hey guys, they're being really cool now, and they said everything's going to be cool, and they're going to fly us home later today, and you guys can go. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. We'll just hang out. We just want to see you off, you know. And then the cops come out, and the immigration people, and they all come out like, hey, what are you guys still doing here? Like, oh, we actually ordered a pizza. We're going to hang out here for a while. That's cool with you, you know. And they're like, who are these guys? They don't know what's going on, right? But we just disrupt the whole thing. But as far as they know, we're just idiot Americans who have decided to care about these people, and it's unfortunate for them. Those 2 guys are home now.
They made it home.
Yeah, they're back in Ethiopia, which is very cool. But that's 2 out of a whole lot more than 2. And so anyway, so what happens now is all that information gets passed to people who hopefully absolutely cannot ignore it, because what was happening before is there was enough people paid. They're like, oh no, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. And hopefully that all that information goes, wait a minute, you said this wasn't happening. This is definitely happening. And they go, oh, I didn't realize. I'm like, no, you're getting paid. You know, you have to cut those, you know, those people have to go, but corruption's everywhere, right? It's tough. It's tough because you have to start. What happens is you're like, well, what businesses do I support? What are they up to? Who owns them? What are they doing? What's happening? You know, what are they involved with? And when you start going down that route, you're like, cool, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to have a farm, you know. And then they show up to your farm and you're like, hey, you can't do that. It's a wild world. But anyway, I guess if people wanted to be supportive of that, I just think, you know, awareness is the beginning of that, being aware that happens. And people a lot of times are called to support missions like the ones we do. They're called to give to them if they can't go, you know, and not everybody should go. Most people should definitely not go. But a lot of people give and support, and they can do that. They can get a hold of me, and I can put them through the right channels and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's wild. And it's one of the great honors of my life to do service work like that, to go out and put myself on the line and learn how, I mean, the perspective that I gain by going there and going, that's not my situation, right? I stopped and got a coffee before coming and hanging out with you guys in this beautiful room and having this beautiful exchange. This would be the best day in someone's life for a lot of people, you know, the absolute best day of their life. They got human connection. They had people, they got to be seen. They got to see others. They got to share this thing. And they got to do so freely, you know, with a cup of coffee and air conditioning, you know. So we are blessed. Life is good. If people can take nothing else away, recognize that your life, just since the first breath and every breath after, is such a gift. Life is good. Gratitude is a miracle. Well, it's good fuel. So be grateful that if you didn't wake up this morning because someone else hit you and told you had to go do their bidding for absolutely nothing, and they'll punish you if you don't. Yeah, your life is good.
Brady, this has been enlightening and amazing and inspiring. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
It's amazing, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you very much.
And spending it with us.
And anybody who listened all the way to here, thank you guys so much for paying attention. If you guys have any other questions, comments, complaints, concerns, I love to chat with you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Brady.
Yep.
It's a wrap.
Thanks, boys.